small preview of Jason and Lizzy. A little bit about this. Jason and Lizzy are two characters, two young children who moved from Chicago to Texas, and this is their first Christmas in Texas. They're sure they're never going to see snow again. It doesn't snow in Texas. So as Christmas nears, Jason and Lizzy decide to make a wish on a star for snow in time for Christmas. What they don't realize is that this brings them much, much more than they ever imagined. So Jason and Lizzy go on their first of their legendary adventures as they journey to save a new friend named Morty the Snowman. And along the way they meet some new classic holiday characters like Santa and Rudolph, and then a few new ones. They meet a displaced penguin, they meet a former Thanksgiving turkey, and a few other friends that we'll leave for later. Lizzy peeked from underneath her covers and listened, holding her breath. Everything looked big and scary in her new room. Shadows lurked in the corners and crowded under the dresser. Lizzy shivered. With a quick exhale, she threw the covers back and jumped down from the bed. She raced to the door, pulled it open, and tiptoed into the hall. She opened the door to her brother's room. JJ, you awake? Lizzy whispered from the dimly lit doorway. Come on in. It's okay. Come on. No? All right. Yeah, he whispered and sat up in bed. Lizzy tiptoed into the room and closed the door behind her. Her shadow flitted through the moonlight, and she crawled onto the bed. What's wrong, sis? Did you have a bad dream? Lizzy shook her head. My new room is scary, and I miss home. Texas is our home now. Don't you miss Chicago? Even a little? I don't know. Maybe a little, Jason hesitated. I do miss playing in the snow. Me too. Lizzy snuggled up next to him. Do you think we'll have any snow for Christmas? Jason shrugged. I don't think so, sis. It hardly ever snows in Texas. Will Santa still come if it doesn't snow? Of course, silly. It doesn't snow everywhere on Christmas. But what about Rudolph? He needs to guide the sleigh through the snow, right? Jason sat still and didn't answer for a long time. I guess no snow just makes Santa's job easier. Well, I think we should wish for snow. Oh, come on, Lizzy, that'll never work. Sure it will. If you wish on a star, it will. Haven't you ever heard of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star? Lizzy slid out of bed and grabbed his hand and tugged. Come on, JJ. If we both do it, it'll definitely come true. Jason groaned at his baby sister, but let her drag him to the window. Okay, repeat after me. Lizzy tucked her short brown hair behind each ear, then clasped her hands in front of her and looked up into the sky for the biggest, brightest star she could find. I wish I may, I wish I might, have this wish I wish tonight. I wish with all my might and all my heart for it to snow. Jason repeated after her. They stared through the window into the darkened sky. Neither moved. Lizzy barely breathed as they waited. Jason sat back and said in a harsh voice, I told you it wouldn't work. Lizzy sat down with her back against the wall. Maybe it doesn't happen right away. Yeah, whatever. Jason flopped under the bed. Go back to sleep. Lizzy looked out the window one more time, hoping to see one small snowflake. Not seeing any, she trudged back to her room. The next morning, Lizzy's voice jolted Jason from his sleep. Jason, Jason, come quick! Lizzy called from her bedroom across the hall. He sat up, rubbing sleep from his eyes. What now, Lizzy? It's snowing! Are you kidding me, he said. I told you, it doesn't snow in Texas. No, Jason, look! He walked over to the window in his bedroom. Even before he reached the windowsill, he saw the small pile of snow mounded against the pane. A thick blanket of white snow, untouched and sparkling in the bright sunlight, covered the backyard. Lizzy looked at him with a smug smile. I told you the wish would work. I can't believe it. He stared out the window wide-eyed. That wish did work. Come on, let's go outside. Lizzy hurried to pull on her bright pink snowsuit, still packed in a winter box they brought from Chicago. The arms were a little short, but her gloves made up the gap. She tugged on her boots, ignoring the pinch of her littlest toe. She hurried down the stairs, Jason right behind her. In the kitchen, their mother stood at the sink, holding a cup of steaming coffee. Mom, it snowed. Can we go play? I know. I can't believe it snowed. I thought we left the snow up north when we moved here. She sighed and then took a sip of her coffee. Oh well, you still have to eat your breakfast, snow or not. You too, Lizzy. She set 2 bowls of steaming oatmeal before them. The weatherman got it really wrong this time. He said it would be 80 degrees today. She looked out the back window. Apparently not. As soon as they both finished and put their dishes in the sink, they looked at their mother. Now can we go play? Their mother nodded. Just be back in time for lunch. Lizzy squealed and they ran out the front door. She immediately threw herself down on her back in a clean patch of snow, began moving her arms back and forth, as though she were doing jumping jacks. Carefully, she stood in the center and looked down at the snow angel she just made. A clump of packed snow hit Lizzy in the shoulder. Hey, Jay, don't do that! Lizzy ducked from the next snowball. Let that go by for a second. Snowball fight, Jason announced. He lobbed another snowball at his little sister. Giggling, she scooped up a handful of snow, packed it tight, and then threw it as hard as she could. Bullseye, she squealed, as the snowball hit Jason in the stomach. I'm gonna get you for that, Jason said. Lizzy ran for the side of the house and a big backyard that led into the neighbor's field. Her breath became a vapor cloud in the air as she shrieked, running through the thick snow. She turned her head and saw Jason right behind her with his arm outstretched to catch her shoulder. Squealing, she zipped sideways and out of reach. Then he caught the hood of her coat and yanked her to the soft snow. He began tickling her. They wrestled in the snow, Lizzy giggling and breathless. Finally, she stopped moving. Stop! I give! You win! She could barely speak. She was panting so hard. Jason sat up with his clothes coated in snow. I think it's almost lunchtime. We better get home or Mom will get worried. He stood and brushed snow off his clothes and helped her to her feet. But where are we? She asked, turning around to look back the way they'd come. Partly melted and messy snow showed where they'd wrestled, but otherwise looked untouched. Nearby, Lizzy could see a small clump of trees with no houses. I don't know. We didn't go that far. Where's Mr. Whitmire's house? Look, over there. Lizzy pointed at a small grouping of buildings in the distance. Maybe someone there can tell us where we are. Remember what Mom says. We're not supposed to talk to strangers, Jason said. Well, what do you think we should do? Lizzy said and put her hands on her hips. Do you see anywhere else we can go? Jason looked around. Snow stretched in all directions. His shoulders slumped. You're right. They walked toward the small group of white houses. As Jason and Lizzy got closer, they could see the house was smaller than a normal house, with a rounded, snow-covered roof. Icicles dangled from the roof, and frost filmed the window panes. Pine garlands wrapped around the porch columns. Lizzy reached out to touch the wall. It was slick, like frozen ice. A wreath made of pine boughs and brightly colored ribbons hung on the door. Look, Jason, a snowman. Someone lives here. Jason stopped. Lizzy, wait. Did that snowman just move? Lizzy stopped and stared. Her mouth dropped open as a snowman hopped toward them. Ah! The snowman yelled and tumbled over backward at the sight of them. Jason and Lizzy hurried forward to help him stand again. How'd you two get here? The kids looked at each other and then back at the snowman. You can talk? They asked. Oh, well, of course I can. But what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. Why not? Lizzy asked. I don't know why, but you're not. You're children, and children are not allowed. He wrung his scarf and paced back and forth. Oh, this is bad, bad, bad. What do I do? What do I do? The snowman stopped and stared at them. I must get to the North Pole. There's no time to waste. Oh, can we come too? Lizzy asked. Pretty please? What? The snowman said. Well, I can't just leave you here. Come along then. The snowman pulled forth a small bag. From within it, he pulled out a small yellow wooden airplane. The snowman began to wind up the toy. What are you doing? Lizzy asked. Getting our plane ready, the snowman said. Our plane? Jason stepped back. You're joking, right? The snowman finished winding the airplane and set it on the ground. Step back and give it some room. First, a talking snowman. Now we're supposed to fly in a toy airplane. Jason shook his head. I must be dreaming. Lizzy clapped her hands. Look, it's getting bigger. They watched as the plane grew larger. A rope ladder unraveled down to the ground. Stubby wings extended from either side of the plane. They didn't look big enough to support the plane. A wooden propeller began to slowly gain speed on the front nose. Hurry! The snowman climbed the ladder and into the first seat. Lizzy looked at Jason and shrugged. He helped her climb up the side of the plane. Seatbelts, everyone, the snowman said. Once all three seatbelts clicked, a clear cover locked into place overhead. You're sure this thing will fly? Jason asked, gripping the seat back in front of him. His fingers curled like claws and left indents in the seat cushion. Of course I am. Now hang on. Here we go. The plane began to coast forward, gaining speed. Lizzy held on as hard as she could. Beside her, Jason barely breathed. The plane became lighter. They soared into the blue sky and began flying impossibly fast, straight north. They looked down. Beneath them, in all directions, the land was a bright white blur. By the way, my name is Mortimer J. Coldsworth, but everyone calls me Morty. You are? I'm Jason, and this is my sister Lizzy. Why is it so important to go to the North Pole? Lizzy asked and leaned forward, straining to hear over the rushing wind. Snowmen, like me, are magical creatures. Each year, we awaken from Christmas Eve until Christmas Day. We bring the Christmas spirit. But something is terribly wrong. We've come too early. It's only the 21st of December. It's also too warm. The Snowman Village is in danger of melting before Christmas. I'm on my way to warn Santa and ask for his help. Oh, no! Lizzy cried and hunched forward, pulling her coat tighter around herself. I think it's my fault. How, child, could this possibly be your fault? Morty twisted in his seat to look at her. My brother and I made a wish for snow in time for Christmas last night. Then this morning it started snowing. Lizzy hung her head and tried to hide a tear sliding down her face. Oh, I see. Where are you from? What do you mean? Lizzy hesitated and bit her lip. We live in Texas. Texas? Oh my, you're very far from home. Isn't it normally hot there? Well, it doesn't snow much, Jason said, but it's not usually as warm as it has been lately. Mom says we're having one of the warmest winters on record. Lizzy clasped her hands together and stared out the window. Mom is going to be so mad at us. We're going to miss lunch for sure. We can only hope Santa knows what to do. Morty pointed ahead. Look, there's his workshop. That is the end of chapter 3. So if you want to come in and grab a seat now, you can come on in. Why are